Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Jonny Lipsham.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this somewhat unusual episode of Songwriting Simplified. Hope everybody's doing well. There's plenty of you in the chat already, which is awesome. Hope you liked the fun little new intro that I made this afternoon. I thought it might be quite entertaining to do it that way rather than play my almost 1.5 minute long intro music, which is great. It's all fine and everything, but I thought, maybe, getting to the action a little bit quicker would be better for everybody. So that's what I've done. So I hope you guys appreciate that. Now, I remember that on Sunday, I accidentally left my mic muted on OBS, which was really stupid. So by the look of it, we don't have that problem tonight. So there we go. That's cool. I should maybe kind of explain a little bit why we are here instead of over on the Home Studio Trainer channel, and why it's just me on my own and not Jonny with me. Jonny has had a bit of a rough day and needed to take things easy tonight, so I said, absolutely fine, you go and get yourself the evening off, because you definitely deserve it, because you do a show not quite 7 nights a week, but 5 nights a week, so he definitely deserves a bit of a night off. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to give him the night off, and you're going to have the pleasure of yours truly, my company, for the next sort of hour and round about that, an hour and a bit maybe. So yeah, so there we go. I hope everybody is well and has had a good week so far. It's been a good one here with Thanksgiving coming up as well for you guys over in the United States. There are plenty of American expats here in Scotland who will be celebrating it as well. It's not an official holiday here. But there are plenty of Americans here that will absolutely be celebrating it, and under UK law, they are allowed to. They're allowed to observe their own customs and traditions. Pull my chair in just a little bit. In fact, a couple who are, I would say, they're amongst our closest friends, and the reason being is that my son is very much in love with their daughter, and their daughter is very much in love with my son. So yeah, so we have a nice little friendship, and they're from the United States. I think they're from the state of Philadelphia and Michigan mostly. But yeah, so we know them really well, and it's great having Americans around me again. I have American family, so I know a lot of customs and traditions that you guys hold very, very dear, and I know that Thanksgiving is definitely a big one. So I hope you guys all have a fantastic extended weekend, and just a little bit of PreSonus news, and that is that whilst you guys are enjoying Thanksgiving, I will be holding the fort for software support. So if you have an issue with Studio One, you can still create a technical support ticket. You can still do that. And it's probably going to be me and one of my colleagues who is over in Ireland. The two of us will be holding the fort whilst the United States aspect of PreSonus is shut down for Thanksgiving. So yeah, if you experience a delay in getting your ticket answered, that'll be why, because there's only going to be 2 of us running the show. So I hope you appreciate that. Let's go see who's here. Thomas is first in the door. Thomas over in the Philippines. Thomas Milkerson. Followed by Music to Motion, who is here as well. And Just Bob is here. One of my faithful moderators who was not very well, and I'm very glad to see him back. And he says that he is 98% brand new. And he feels great, which is awesome. So very glad to hear that, Bob. Absolutely. Who else do we have here? Ken is here, one of my other faithful moderators, Ken Moss. And the Toggle family are here. Always good to have you guys here. And Martin Weeks is here. Who else do we have? Mika is here. Scott Astill is here as well, and Lily, our piano player, she's here. Alps Media, the sponsors of Home Studio Trainer, are here as well. Louis, I'm very glad you're here. It's always good to meet new friends, and certainly I feel that I have made a friend in you and the business that you run, so that's awesome. And who else is here? Bill Shepherd is here, and Dwayne, and I think that just about wraps up all the people we have. Hang on, I've got an itch in my nostril. We have 21 people here, which is great for a Songwriting Simplified when it's arranged hastily at the last minute over here on my channel. Mika says, is talking about Jonny Guy being humble enough to admit that. Yeah, he and there was a little bit of persuasion that needed to happen there, but yeah, he's good. He's good. So, oh, and I missed somebody. DJ Vivaldi is here as well. Sorry about that. I missed you. But yeah, everybody else is here. So, what's the agenda for tonight? Well, considering we had to kind of change plans a little bit at the last minute, decided that we would just do a Q&A tonight so you guys can ask your questions. Now, normally for Songwriting Simplified, the scope of the show is just songwriting, arranging, composing, melody, harmony, music theory, anything that is involved with songwriting is kind of the scope of these shows. So if you're new to my show, that's kind of what we do on a Wednesday. And then on Sunday, we open things up a little bit more and we talk more about the whole gambit of music production. So we will talk about mixing, mastering, recording techniques, the history of recording techniques we've done in the past as well. And yeah, and we'll just open everything up a little bit more and explore some more in-depth topics. That's the kind of idea of Sunday Night Live. And, kind of we do more kind of in the way of demonstrations in Studio One. But really, Songwriting Simplified is much more about songwriting and talking about those kind of things. So we'll just make this a Q&A session tonight, and then normal service will be resumed next week. And as it's Thanksgiving weekend, I have to decide whether I'm going to do a show or not. I might do a very short one, given the fact that you guys over in the United States are going to be, kind of still chilling out and enjoying family time. So I'm not expecting a whole lot of you to be at my show, but I know that there are other people around the world. Like we have people in the Philippines, we have people in Europe. I still want to do something for them. So what I might do on Sunday is shift my show back a wee bit to maybe kind of in the afternoon, maybe like 4 or 5 p.m., something like that Central Time, and just do a short, little 30-minute show. But yeah, if you guys think that is a better idea than doing it at 6 p.m. Central Time, the usual show on a Sunday, even though it's Thanksgiving, please do let me know what you think. And I'm prepared to kind of like move things around a bit to make it easier for you guys to attend or feel better about not attending. So let's get your questions in so that I don't have to talk for like 45 minutes. Let's see. Ken asks, when's the last time you listened to a full album start to finish that you have never listened to before? Seems like folks just don't do that anymore. Impact on writing for albums versus singles. Now those are two actually really good questions. Me personally, I have always made it my habit since I was a kid to listen to an entire record from start to finish. I know a lot of people don't do that. For a lot of people, the way they listen to music these days is it's either kind of passively because it's background music, or they're listening whilst they're doing something else. They might be doing another task. And I've even seen people they'll listen to music on their phone whilst they're watching the telly, and I'm just like, how can you do that? How can you watch TV and listen to music at the same time? How is it your brain can concentrate on the two things completely? For most people, the answer is it doesn't, but they just need noise. You know what I mean? Of course, There are some people in the modern 21st century world where, attention spans are that much shorter. So, they might even not make it through an entire 3.5-minute song before they have skipped on to the next one. They might get maybe a minute and a half through the song and then they skip on to the next one. Now, if the song is really, really good, then you should be able to hold even the shortest attention span for much longer than they would ordinarily listen to. So, the first few seconds, the first 3 seconds of your song are absolutely crucial. That is your sales pitch for the song. And if you don't grab your listener in those first 3 seconds, they will move on. And, there's a degree to which that has always been the case, where kind of like the first few seconds are crucial. And it used to maybe be the first 10 or 15 seconds was crucial, but now it's much more the first 3 seconds are crucial, because people just go skip and they're on to the next song. And you've kind of lost, to a degree, your song is less successful than it could be by that token. It kind of depends largely upon your, your target audience. If your target audience is people kind of in the, 35 and above age bracket, then you're gonna have a longer period to sell the song to them. But if your target market is kind of like below 25, below 30, and down into teenage years, then yes, you absolutely have to grab them immediately. Grab their attention, otherwise they are gone and they're on to the next thing super fast. So yeah, it's really important that you grab your listener as soon as you possibly can and sell your song to them. Give them a reason, give them a compulsion to stay with your song. And so you can do that in a variety of ways. There's using your hook line, your melody from your chorus, in your intro. Give them kind of some, a little bit of foretelling, like a foreword to a book, or a prologue, or something like that, which kind of sets the scene for what is yet to come. So you give them a little bit of a hint of what's yet to come. And kind of with larger orchestral works, the great composers like Mozart, Beethoven, and people like that, when they wrote large symphonic works, they would have, or an opera, they would have an overture. What was the overture? The overture was the setting the scene for what is about to unfold in front of you in the theatre. And so the overture may have been like 7 or 8 minutes long, and you would get little pieces of melody from all of the material spanning the entire work. And you're just giving them little hooks, that would embed into their minds and into their hearts. And then when they hear that song performed for them in full, further down the line, they go, oh, I recognize that melody. And so what we need to do today in the modern world is write our music where those hooks come thick and fast in a much shorter, condensed period of time. Otherwise, you lose your audience pretty quick. It is unfortunately just the way it is. But that is a great question. Music to Motion says, what do you eat on Thanksgiving, though it is not a real holiday for your country? We just tend to eat normal stuff. We don't go down the whole kind of like turkey and all the trimmings that go with that. We kind of save that here in the UK anyway. We kind of save that for Christmas. But for us personally, in the Lipsham household, we'll maybe have lamb on Thanksgiving instead of the more traditional turkey, because we're not part of that. We're not American. But it is, we will observe it kind of casually. And we'll maybe call my family in Chicago, we'll maybe call my family down in South Carolina, and my other family over in Philadelphia, we'll probably call them. And that's kind of like how our day will go, to be honest. But yeah, we don't really eat we don't do a lot of the traditional things, and we certainly don't eat a lot of the traditional stuff for Thanksgiving. But we certainly, we nod our head to it, for sure. Martin says, can we discuss at length more about alternative chord ideas? I'm doing a lot of cinematic is that drama? Is that meant to be drama? Dramatic music, and blending strings and brass is a big deal. Yeah, that's more to do with orchestration than the natural chord changes. And that is a massive subject. We could probably set aside a whole show to do with orchestration. Because, to be honest, you can actually study a degree course in orchestration. Or certainly a module within a degree you could study orchestration. I did that. In my undergraduate degree, one of my undergraduate degrees, I studied composition, jazz composition specifically, but, I had to have a good grounding in orchestration and texture and voicing and all of that. I had to have some good solid grounding in that. But in a kind of nutshell, the thing you have to remember, particularly with brass and strings, brass are much louder than strings. Even if you have like 100 violins and violas and cellos and, upright basses, the brass is still going to be louder and project more. So what you have to do is you have to keep them out of the way of each other in the way you write for your orchestra. Even if you have them playing at the same time, you still kind of have to keep them out of the way of each other. So, for example, you know that your trumpets and your trombones and your French horns are going to be piercing, okay? Even in their middle register, they are going to project right to the very back of the room, And your violins aren't necessarily. So what you have to do is you have to get your violins in a much higher register than your brass. So kind of from a tessitura point of view, your strings would be up here and your brass would be here. And so you would voice your strings much higher when you have brass going on, if you are to have them happening at the same time. But the best and simplest way to deal with that problem is to actually have them out of the way of each other. So when the brass are playing, strings aren't. Or you're relying on your lower strings, like your violas and your cellos and your upright basses. They are providing the lower register foundation for your brass that are playing on top, and then you can switch them round by contrast and have the strings up high, the brass down low. Or you can have them kind of not playing when, one or the other is playing. So have brass, have strings answer it, brass, and then maybe just to surprise the audience, have woodwinds answer it the second time instead of strings. So you're providing, kind of contrast that way. And the other thing you have to remember is that they not only sound very, very different, and they have a different kind of dynamic range, they also are played very differently, and that makes a difference to the kind of sound that you can project, and therefore that will dictate how you will write for them. So, strings are, for the most part, going to be bowed, but not always. You may pluck the strings as well, pizzicato. Or if you are somebody like Holst, then maybe you will reverse the bow and use the wood side of the bow to create a percussive effect. Holst did that in the Planet Suite for Mars. He had all the strings kind of playing this note in octaves. And everybody is playing this insistent, dun 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 dun. Everyone's playing that rhythm, and he had all the strings players reverse their bows so that the wood of the bow is striking the strings, and it created this really interesting percussive effect. And I don't know how he arrived at that. Maybe he arrived at that entirely by accident, but it really worked, and it created this kind of this really interesting sound with the strings, because when the wood strikes the string, you lose a lot of the body of the sound, and you end up with just the top end and the very percussiveness of the sound, which is different to plucking. And so it creates a really, really different kind of sound altogether, and then having everybody play this insistent rhythm really works really well. But if you listen to Mars from the Planets, you'll hear how the strings and the brass are actually very much out of each other's way, or you'll have the brass playing a fanfare and you'll have the strings answering that on top, much higher up, and usually doubled with woodwinds. So you're not just having brass and strings, you're having strings with woodwinds doubling. So if you've got like first and second violins really high up here somewhere, somewhere like that, then you would have like piccolos and flutes doubling those, particularly piccolos, because piccolos are really piercing, and they will cut through. Piccolos will cut through. And so you can have them play the same as your first violins, right? When the first violins are playing right at the end of their fingerboard, you can have piccolos play in that same register and play exactly the same thing. And it'll add a little bit of weight and a little bit of extra projection for your strings. So there's a couple of things to think about. Think about ways in which you can support the brass without the strings kind of getting completely lost. So, for example, if you've got low strings, then you want to remove a lot of the low brass. Otherwise, the low strings will disappear. So, kind of like keep it to cellos, second violins, violas, and basses, and then put your thinner brass on the top. So maybe your trumpets, your flugelhorn, if you have one in your orchestration, and cornets, and leave the things like the tuba, unless you've got a tuba doubling a double bass, and your French horns, kind of leave them. Your French horns and your trombones, have them sit out, and then so you don't lose your lower strings completely. So I hope that helps answer that question. But like I said, it's a huge subject, and really I could talk for several hours on this subject in depth, because I studied it for 4 years. So yeah, and you say you want to get it right, absolutely. All right, so Bob says we can't go anywhere or do anything, we'll be around. Cool, okay. Music to Motion says, I get it. I have to focus on one thing at a time in order to hear or enjoy the full thing. Yeah, having a kind of focused mind when you're listening to music is to me, it's the best way to listen to music. But I mean, I've been doing that since I was a kid. I mean, when I was like 3 years old, I'd pull records out of the record collection that my parents had. My parents had a wonderful record collection. They had everything from Duke Ellington to Fleetwood Mac and everything in between. So, they had a very eclectic mix. And the records I was pulling out Duke Ellington, I was pulling out the Buddy Rich Big Band, I was pulling out Steely Dan, Weather Report, Miles Davis, Charlie Parker, John Coltrane, Dizzy Gillespie, the United Nations Jazz Orchestra. I was pulling all of those records out and making my parents play them. And really, it was kind of one of the things I did so that my mum could do what she needed to do around the house, do all the tidying, the cleaning, the cooking, that kind of stuff. When me and my sister were very small, that's what she did. And so that was the way to keep me quiet and keep me occupied, was to play records. And what was I doing? I was listening intently to the music, and I was taking it in. And years later, when I started playing this music with bands as a professional musician, I didn't have to study the charts, especially for Duke Ellington music. I didn't have to study the charts. I didn't have to read them. It was all in here because it had all gone into my head and into my ears and into my heart. So I knew everybody's part. We'd do, I'm trying to think of maybe like 2 o'clock jump or something like that. a Duke Ellington number or Chelsea Bridge or something like that that Billy Strayhorn and he composed together. And I would listen to those when I was a kid. And then when I was much older, and I was kind of directing youth big bands as a much older, guy in my late 20s, early 30s. And I didn't have to read the score at all. And I knew everybody else's part because I had totally taken it in when I was like 3 years old, sat in front of the record player. So to me, listening straight like that is a habit. That's what I do. If I'm going to listen to music, that's what I do. I put it on and I sit and I listen. And I concentrate and I am kind of analyzing what I'm listening to. I'm going, wow, that's a lovely little bass line. That's a lovely way in which the piano player responded to the bass player and played that little phrase, and then the drummer picks that up with the kick drum. Stuff like that. That's what I listen to. That's my enjoyment. But yeah, focused listening is kind of my habit. I think somebody messaged me and I need to go see who it was. Oh, okay. That's cool. Let me go back. So that was a good question. I put a record on, says Lily, and it has 100% of my attention for the entire thing, but I listen to music on my Kindle and it is just background noise. Yeah, that is funny, isn't it? How modern technology does that to you. I think we had a super chat and I missed who it was. Let me go see who it was. It was Music to Motion. Thank you very much. That is very kind for you to donate $10 to the cause of... Don't know if you can see it very well. Jonny Lipsham Studios. That is very kind. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your kindness. Thank you. Let's see. Mine says that's a notorious issue regarding production for music. Producing music for TV and film. Music supervisors are busy. They literally cannot listen to 3 minutes of music. Yeah, quite often that is absolutely the case. Let's see, what else did I miss? Because the chat just jumped and I have to go and find where I was. Mika says the 3-second rule sucks. It represents the corporate pigeon braining of young people. I personally dislike music that grabs you by the nether regions in 3 seconds. Yeah, I actually agree with you. But, however, it is the culture in which the music industry has brought us all. And therefore, young people are imbibing corporate music. They are. That's what they listen to. And so... that's kind of that's how their ears are trained. And I guess it's up to us, the kind of custodians of, much older music. It is up to us to kind of like preserve that way of listening and teach that way of listening to younger people and say, hey, sit, listen, enjoy. These people have worked long and hard to make this music for you. To listen to, appreciate it from the very start to the end of it, and listen to all the work that they put into it. Appreciate it. But unfortunately, it is the way it is that even actually commercial music that is impeccably produced, arguably too much production goes in, and young people listen to it really passively. And they don't really get it. They don't really get how much hard work has gone into making that tune. But if they like it, they buy it. And of course that pays our bills, doesn't it? And arguably it makes, record company fat cats even fatter and their bank balances even fatter. Arguably it does that. And arguably it does that possibly at the expense of the artists and the composers of the songs. I kind of agree, actually. Let's see. That's probably why Hard Day's Night by the Beatles was such a huge instant hit. Yeah, kind of, yeah, because it does grab you straight away. It's straight into the chorus. And there are actually quite a lot of songs that do that. They just like smack you in the face with the chorus of the song, and then they get to kind of the narrative of the song. Mika says, I found just the opposite. Soundtrack music is all about building and exposing the rising tension of film. Yeah, for sure. Certainly when it comes to film composition, that is absolutely true. But if you're providing something that is going to be used kind of as a backdrop to a scene, so, maybe you write a song and that song is going to be used, maybe it's playing on a radio or a record player in scene for that film, or that TV show. And I've had this happen myself, where I've written a song, and that song has been used to be played in the background of a scene. And in that sense, it really isn't about exploring the kind of developing motifs for characters in the film like you would in a more traditional film composition setting, where you would develop leitmotifs and thematic material that kind of it's like the music is an extra character in the cast. And a lot of the great film composers, John Williams, Hans Zimmer, James Horner, they've all done that, where it's about kind of exploring the emotion, it's about exploring the tensions between the characters, and how the plot develops. And therefore how you develop the motifs. If you have a motif that represents a particular character, is that, a lot of great film composers, they will take that little motif and they will develop it according to what the character goes through and experiences as the plot unfolds and as the film unravels before the viewer. Most people that are movie watchers, they won't notice that consciously that is happening, but they will certainly subconsciously and certainly emotionally, on an emotional level, they will find that the music and the thematic material developed by the composer for that particular character and what that character goes through, they will identify with it. They may not understand it on a technical level or on a musicological level, but certainly they would understand it emotionally. But, music that you write for sync licensing is kind of a little bit different. It is kind of in a unique class of its own in that respect. And we've got another donation here, which is from Vivaldi. Thank you very much. He says this is the equivalent of approximately $10. Thank you very much. I appreciate that a lot. That is very kind. Awesome. You guys are very generous tonight. I appreciate it a lot. Bob says, kids want music to hit like ecstasy, in your face and grab you. Yeah, certainly, and that's definitely the case when it comes to music that is going to be used on the dance floor. Absolutely has to grab you by the short and curlies to get you on the dance floor. For sure. But yes, and Lily is quite correct here. She's pointed something out, very important. We have to be careful not to generalize, because not all young people are kind of like attention span of about 15 seconds. There are some young people who have a much broader capacity for learning and growth and understanding, and their attention span is much, much greater because it's been stimulated. And and there are young people that grow up in an environment at home where, kind of growth in that respect is valued and prized and encouraged, and therefore, the listening muscles get exercised because you see your parents exercising their listening muscles or exercising their performing muscles, if you have a piano at home or a guitar at home or something. And so, that side of your brain gets stimulated, and, naturally your attention span, your ability, your stamina expands the more you exercise it. So it's entirely possible to get a so-called atypical young person that has a very short attention span to a much larger attention span eventually by training, by gradually, stretching it and developing it over time. Kind of like an athlete would train for a marathon. You can't go from couch to marathon in a week. You could, but it would be lunacy to do so because your body would not be ready and you would do yourself serious injury, and I don't recommend that at all. But if you want to run something like the Boston Marathon or the London Marathon, or if you want to do one of those Ironman events, you have to train. You have to develop your body. You have to develop your muscles and your stamina so that you are able to, run the 26 and a bit miles. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And, you fall at the first, you don't make it past mile 1 if you're not ready. And so you have to train your body to be able to do that first mile, and then to do 2 or 3 miles, and then to be able to do 5, and then to be able to do 15 or whatever. And you have to, and so it is with music listening as much as it is with actual practice on your instrument. And as it is with writing songs. Nobody writes a hit song the first time they put pen to paper or the first time they open Studio One. It's exceptionally rare. Not saying it's impossible, but it is certainly exceptionally rare for that to happen. So, yeah. We certainly cannot generalize, and I agree. Let's see. Going down to kind of see what the general chit-chat is, and I'm looking for questions. Getting a lot of plosives. Oh well. Sorry about that. I am sometimes exceedingly close to the microphone. I'll back off a little bit. It's fine. Let's see. I got music to motion. I got that backwards there for a second. I got really cool new stringed instrument called Friction in Reason, which I can play easily. I say the sound is on par with some of the East West or Spitfire things I have, but they are solo. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard that. Yeah, I might actually be a little bit closer to my mic than I normally would be. Mika says, I guess that no one here has a PD70 mic. They're getting rave reviews. They certainly are getting rave reviews, and they are being shipped. But certainly with COVID-19, shipping is probably a little slower than normally would be. But no, I don't have one. But I am getting one. For sure, and it will probably make doing the show a lot easier. Jonny Gibe has one. I don't yet, but I have one on the way. Woodwind says rounding out the sound, creating the body. Yeah, it depends on the woodwind instrument. Depends on the woodwind instrument, because you have piccolos who can take up the very, very high register and flutes that can take the next bit kind of down, if you like. And then you have like things like clarinets and oboes and cor anglais that can kind of overlap the upper mid range. But clarinets can also go down quite low and fill out some of the low mids as well. And then you have bass clarinets that can fill out the low end, bassoons that can fill out the low end. And contrabassoons and things like that. So, you kind of like, if you want, you can have an entire woodwind orchestra that just, let me adjust this thing a little bit. An entire woodwind orchestra that, covers the whole range, if you like, of human hearing from right up at the very top of the piccolo range all the way down to the very, very low end of the contrabass bassoon, for example. But yeah, and the thing with orchestral writing is that woodwinds are often used to either support strings in contrast to brass, or they're kind of used in contrast between either brass or strings. So, kind of like they can be picky in the middle sometimes, Depends on who the composer is. For example, Mozart was a big fan of having strings and brass kind of trade melodic lines, whilst you had oboes and clarinets provide a harmonic bed for those instruments. He would do that a fair bit, and actually one of the kind of signature sounds of his was how he used oboes and cor anglais and clarinets together to create harmony. That was kind of one of his signature sounds. And then kind of flutes. A flute would occasionally just pop up out of nowhere, pierce through kind of like this body of woodwind sound, and then dive back down again. And it's one of those. I mean, that's what we would now call ear candy. Is where you have like this nice little bed of strings and low woodwinds, and then suddenly a flute melody comes in like a bird out of nowhere and just goes and is gone again. Peeks through the clouds, drops back down, and is gone again. And nowadays we'd call that ear candy. That's what we would do with kind of like a note effect or something like that, or event effects where we might put a delay on a particular sound and have it ping pong. That's ear candy. And in Mozart's time, a little motif that kind of poked up and projected out of the orchestra and then dived down again was ear candy, orchestral ear candy. Out says on order Personas has some back orders. Yes, indeedy. Martin says, and of course, panning placement would also matter regarding strings and brass. Yes, absolutely. Yep, you definitely don't have a mono orchestra for sure. Mika says, orchestral panoramic placement is everything. Definitely. Could not agree more. Alright, Tim Talks is here. Tim Talks Audio. I don't know why I've dropped into a Wolverhampton accent for you, because you're definitely not from Wolverhampton, but it just kind of came out that way. But hello, I'm glad you're here. Let's see. Lily says, my favorite record in my collection is Ella Fitzgerald. I love Ella Fitzgerald, but by the same token, as much as I love Ella Fitzgerald, I absolutely adore the sound, the improvisation, and the phrasing of Billie Holiday. Listen to Billie Holiday singing God Bless the Child, and if it doesn't melt you and break you down into a weeping child, I don't know what will. To be honest. Let's see. Wait, the chat just massively jumped again. I hate it when it does that. And Vital Caron is here as well. He says, sorry being late. Not a problem, mate. Not at all. Okay, Tim has a songwriting question. Is the easy key change pivot chord a 6/7 chord? No, but you're close. The easy pivot chord is a 5/7 chord, because the 5 chord is a dominant chord and it always leads somewhere else every time. For example, if I'm in the key of G, hang on, let me move the mic a bit so it's easier for me to talk. Key of G, straight regular G chord, nothing added, nothing taken away. And I'm in this key. And I want to go to the key of B, B flat. I can do that with one chord just by using F7, which is the 5 of B flat. And if I want to go back, D7. And now I'm back in the key of G. Now let's say I want to go to the key of E. Well, I'm going to need the 5 of E to do that, which is going to be B7. And now we're in the key of E. But this doesn't just work with major keys, this can work with minor keys as well. So we're in E, so let's go to C sharp minor. C sharp minor, and we want to go to G again, but this time G minor. We'll stay minor because it's sad and depressing and lonely. So there we go. So the chord you're after there, Tim, is 5/7. And it's the 5 of the new key, not the one that you're already in. If you try and do it with the one that you're already in, you'll be stuck in an ever-decreasing circle. You'll be stuck in a cycle that you can't get out of, and you'll still be sat there going... And you'll be doing that forever. Until you do this. And now you're in the key of D. See? You broke it by using the 5 of a different key. It's the only way to break that cycle. So I hope that helps very much. They asked me specifically for dark drum underscores. Oh, good luck with that. That will be challenging. Because you'll need to find something that is dark in terms of its mood, but not just in terms of its mood, but in terms of its tessitura, its range, its timbre, and its texture. So, you know, you could be like down here. And that's kind of dark. It's the same kind of timbre as before because it's a Fender Rhodes, but you know, imagine doing that with strings. You know, kind of like you've got your cellos and your violas with your double basses kind of doing. I just remembered last week, I listened back to last week's show and realized the keyboard was actually so loud it was clipping OBS. So if you got some crackles there, that'll be why. Sorry about that. But yes, I hope that helps answer that question. Thomas asks, what's your plan for the next level of music theory? I have a plan to develop brand new harmonic concepts that nobody has touched yet. Literally nobody has touched yet. By this I mean I know that people like Adam Neely and Jacob Collier and others like that have explored microtonal harmony and that kind of thing, and I dig all of that, but I want to take that to the nth degree, to the next level. So I'm talking, you know, not just microtonal jazz, but I'm talking microtonal jazz, and seeing what can be done by bending and distorting the harmonic series whilst keeping it kind of listenable too. So you kind of create a hooky little melody that people will latch on to and not realize that underneath that hooky little melody is some outrageously wicked complex jazz harmony. That's my intention for the next level of music theory. Let's see. What else do we have? DJ Vivaldi says, I appreciate your production. You often use chord inversions and add many interesting articulations that create a specific mood and teach you an innovative approach to composing. Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say so. That's very cool. I like that. And yes, I do like to spice things up in terms of adding notes to chords and, tensions and things like that. And it's taken me a long time to kind of develop my harmonic palette. For a long time, I was very much into kind of what we would call triadic harmony, and most pop songs are kind of based around it, just basically triad, maybe no more than 4-note chords. And I really didn't venture much beyond that kind of harmonic level for a while, until I started hearing other things on the records I was listening to and then trying to figure out what they were. So it wasn't long before I started finding things like, adding a major seventh to it on the top, and then instead of doubling the root note, shifting that up to up a tone and create a major ninth chord. And I love that sound. I mean, it's great for a variety of different things. There's kind of like that smooth kind of Latin jazz thing you can do. If you're into that kind of thing, you can certainly do that. But, these days, I like adding a sixth to it as well. So you get like a major 6-9 chord. So I would do root, 6, 9, third, 5, major 7, like that. And then shift this about by intervals of major sevenths. Intervals of major thirds, or sometimes minor thirds. So, I might do... so that my chords are actually progressing kind of not by kind of like 2-5-1 or other kind of fairly standard progressions, but I'm moving by shifting the roots around by major or minor thirds. It makes for more challenge for improvisation, but it also makes more of an interesting sound, I think. It's taken me a little while to get to that point, but that's kind of where I'm at now, is kind of like taking kind of tonal harmony and shifting it about so that there's no necessarily overall key center, but it's not modal either. Is kind of where I'm at right now. So I hope that's answered that question. I think we've reached the end of the chat, and we've got 5 minutes left. Ken says, had the pleasure to see... Who are you talking about, Ken? I'm not really sure who you're talking about. Had the pleasure to see him with the Philly Orchestra, did his music, some jazz and some Rhapsody in Blue. Great concert. You talking about Duke Ellington, maybe? I'm not sure, mate. I'm trying to figure out where I was in the chat. Tim says, have to run, friends, but thanks for the insight to key changes. Yeah, it's the 5-1s are the easiest way to change key. If you want to, it's fairly brutal though, but if you want to do something a little bit more subtle, then there are all sorts of kind of ways you can do it with little... Instead of having a pivot chord, have a pivot tone. So you're talking about literally just one note that leads you into the next key center. And you can have great fun exploring that. And in fact, Samuel Barber, if you've ever listened to Adagio for Strings, he does that. That is the basis harmonically of that entire piece of music. It's pivots between different, I think it's 4 different key centers that it goes through. And your ear is set up for it not by 5/1 progressions, but by pivot notes. A note that sets up the new key by being in common with one key center and the next one. And he does that a lot throughout that piece. It's one of the things that makes that piece so kind of a little bit weird, a little bit mysterious, and a little bit kind of dark as well. Even though some of these key centers are actually major key centers, and the whole work is firmly rooted in major minor tonality, it's still kind of a little bit wonky because it never stays in the same key center. It's one of the things I personally really like about it, other than the melody is just an absolute triumph. It's a thing of beauty, and the way he uses kind of stepwise motivic development to take this little melodic idea and move it around by transpositional stepwise motion. Very, very cool. It's very, very clever. It's one of my favorite pieces of all time. That riff with the major 6/9 sounded similar to the intro Deacon Blues. Deacon Blues. See if I can remember how that goes. I've not played that for a few years. There you go. Not played that in a few years, I have to admit, but it's a lovely piece of chromatic harmony. Wouldn't a pivot note also be known as a passing tone? No, those are actually two different things. A passing tone, although they can be positionally the same thing, but they are technically different things. A passing tone is not necessarily active, whereas a pivot note is active, i.e. it's going somewhere, it is taking the listener's ear somewhere, whereas a passing note doesn't necessarily do that. Passing notes are passing, they are transitory, whereas a pivot note is active. Kind of like the difference between, if you were to go from one house to another by going over the fence, a passing tone would be you kind of like pulling yourself up with your arms and then lowering yourself down on the other side. The fence becomes therefore passive. It's kind of a different thing. So whereas a pivot is like getting a ladder and actually climbing up the ladder and then climbing down, putting the ladder down on the other side and climbing down it, it's much more active. So I hope that helps. Maybe not the best explanation or that kind of thing, but certainly I hope that helps understand that. But yeah, a passing note can be a pivot note, but for the most part, they're not. They are just transitory. They don't actually necessarily have a harmonic. They're not necessarily harmonically active. Kind of music exists, but I'm happy we're looking for new solutions and go beyond the scale to create new sounds and complete new harmonic solutions. Yep, absolutely. That's kind of what I want to do, really. When I am not working my day job at Presonus and my night job here in the studio, when I have time just for me, then that's what I'm doing. I'm sat here at the piano kind of working things out and kind of developing some new ideas, and hopefully they will coalesce into some new works and maybe a new record. Maybe I've not done an EP in 4 years. It's about flipping time I did one. All right, so I think we will wrap it up there, folks, and I will say a very big thank you to everybody who has that's not the button I wanted. A big thank you to everybody that has come out to the show tonight and allowed us to peak at, I think we peaked at around about 27, which is pretty good for us. So thanks a lot, everybody, and thank you very much to those that donated the super chats. You guys are amazing. I appreciate you very much, and I will see you back here again for Sunday Night Live. As I say, it's probably going to be, because it's Thanksgiving, probably be a shorter show, and I'll maybe shift it around time-wise as well. And I know certainly with, everybody going back again into lockdown kind of means that maybe we can't all meet up as much as we would like to. So certainly I'm not going to be able to see my family for sure. So, and certainly this Christmas is going to be very different. For us here, we're going to be stuck here, and my family just the other side of the river, like literally 45 minutes the other side of the Firth of Forth. We're not going to be able to see them this Christmas, so we're going to have to do Christmas dinner over a Zoom call or something like that, probably, and get my Glasgow family involved in that as well. So, yeah, it's going to be weird, but it is what it is. Thank you very much, everybody, and I will see you on Sunday at some point. I'll put out an announcement when it's going to be. All right, cheers, folks. Good night.